Chapter 406, Three Great Enchantments. When Han Shao returned to the Soul Destroyer mercenary band, he discovered that with the support of Grant, Trunks was sitting in the middle of the practice arena and was currently raising his head and staring into the vast white sky. Trunks was still very weak. Although his wounds had been treated, it would be impossible for him to recover without 10 to 15 days of rest. The most severe injuries were his severed hand and feet tendons. Roughly a month would be needed for them to reattach and regain their original durability. It was very clear that Trunks was worried about the Soul Destroyer mercenary band. However, as his tendons were severed, he could only sit here weakly, similar to a disabled person unable to move his hands and feet. Luckily, his eyes had gradually recovered its light. As he gazed into the sky, he had a thoughtful expression indicating that although he suffered heavy injuries, he still had a strong mentality. "Why have you come out here? It is best if you sincerely stay indoors and recuperate for this period of time. Don't worry, the invaders have already retreated in heavy defeat. In the short term, Lorden would definitely be powerless to deal with us." Han Shao descended by Trunks' side and paraded. "It's okay, I'm feeling better now. Hee. I'm not willing to hide inside and bitterly wait for others to bring me information during the Soul Destroyer mercenary band's most dangerous period of time." Trunks smiled as he replied. Pausing for a moment, he knitted his brows and asked, "Brian, is Florida dead?" Han Shao replied while nodding, "That's right. I know you wanted to personally kill him, but there are immense benefits for us in killing him now. With his death, the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band would fall into disunity. The number of our enemies would also decrease greatly. Hence I didn't let him get away." Trunks sighed and said ruefully, "Hi, not killing personally can be considered regretfully, but his early demise is indeed beneficial to us. If I had got rid of him previously, all these disorderly matters wouldn't have happened. It seems that I am to blame for all of these matters." Besides Florida, Adam Menlo died as well. The two of them were the pillars of the Rainbow Sickle mercenary band and the House of Menlo respectively. Their deaths have caused great repercussions for the two powers. Currently there are still 3,000 people in the surroundings, including the people under Lorden. However, I believe they would be departing shortly. Han Shao narrated the details of the battle to Trunks. "Don't need to worry about the remaining matters here. I know you have many matters to deal with. Leave Lorden to me. I'll send Lorden packing." Trunks replied, "It's just one Lorden. I can remove him in passing. It wouldn't take up too much of my time." Han Shao looked at Trunks in astonishment. "Based on his current injuries, he definitely won't fight with you in the near future." Han Shao was somewhat worried. "Brian, the Valley of Sunshine has its own rules. If I want to convince others, I should not completely rely on your strength. Only if I openly get rid of Lorden and the Cairo mercenary band would I be able to successfully hold power in the Valley of Sunshine and win the respect of others." Trunks, who still had a weak complexion, said resolutely. Han Shao was stunned, hesitating a moment before saying, "But your injuries." He don't need to worry. It's not like I would immediately deal with Lorden. As you said, based on Lorden's personality, he definitely won't dare to attack this place without absolute certainty. Now that the flying magical creatures of the House of Menlo have also been killed by you, they definitely wouldn't dare to attack in the near future. We still have Gilbert here. As time passes, they would surely give up. Be rest assured, after experiencing the pain previously, I would no longer be complacent. I have the confidence in eradicating Lorden and the Cairo mercenary band." Trunks looked extremely confident. Having experienced the ruthless torture previously, there seemed to be a change in Trunks' body. When Han Shao heard what Trunks said, he looked at Trunks deeply and hesitated for a while before smiling and said, "Since you are so insistent about it, I would no longer interfere with the matters of the Valley of Sunshine. However, if you face any difficulties, you must inform me as quickly as possible. Don't worry, the Soul Destroyer mercenary band isn't solely mine. I know what needs to be done." Trunks smiled as he replied, "Gilbert, you stay here. Before Trunks recovers, look after him properly for me." Han Shao looked at Gilbert and instructed, "Understood, Honorable Master." Gilbert acknowledged Han Shao's instructions. Trunks actually wanted to rely on his own strength to firmly wield power within the Valley of Sunshine. He indeed couldn't rely on others for everything and could only utilize the strength he had to get rid of the strongest power in the Valley of Sunshine, the Kyra mercenary band. Only then can Trunks truly obtain everyone's respect. For him to have such a realization and train of thought, Han Sha-O was surprised and at the same time full of admiration. This proved that Trunks was truly a talent. Furthermore, Han Sha-O could see the changes in Trunks ever since he had rescued Trunks. He realized that Trunks had become stronger and more ruthless, no longer as careless and benevolent. The previous lesson was really too cruel. Trunks had to go through torment more painful than death. There would no longer be any situations too difficult for him from now on. Han Sha-O precisely noticed this and suddenly understood why Trunks asked Han Sha-O to leave Lorden to him. Apart from using Lorden to test his methods, he also wanted to use Lorden to polish his martial technique. Currently only Lorden was able to deal with Trunks within the entire Valley of Sunshine. If Han Sha-O killed Lorden now, Trunks would lose the most suitable opponent. Not only would he lose much pleasure, he would also lose a turning point in making a breakthrough. It was also only through Lorden that Trunks would be able to improve once again. Having understood Trunks' intention, Han Sha-O didn't insist on his own thoughts and truly let go of matters within the Valley of Sunshine. He then said his goodbyes to Trunks and Gilbert within the same day, returning to the Cemetery of Death from the Valley of Sunshine. Returning to the Cemetery of Death, Han Sha-O followed his original purpose and headed down to explore. The reason why he returned to Cemetery of Death was due to Wolf's information. Were it not for Gilbert suddenly requesting for emergency assistance, Han Sha-O would have already long since explored the third layer of the Cemetery of Death. Now that he had returned, Han Sha-O immediately headed below the Cemetery of Death. Having had the previous experiences, Han Sha-O's exploration seemed to be a walk in the park. Han Sha-O instilled his mental energy into the first two layers, easily breaking through the enchantments and headed for the passageway that led to the third layer. Han Sha-O only stopped when he sensed the existence of an enchantment. Taking a deep breath, Han Sha-O slowly condensed his mental energy to probe the area where the enchantment was. Bang! Han Sha-O's mental energy had just touched the area when his mind was suddenly jolted as a large force suddenly rushed forward like countless small snakes forcing their way into Han Sha-O's mind. This caused Han Sha-O to feel an endless tingling pain. Fortunately, Han Sha-O had prior experience hastily holding his breath in rapt attention, directing stronger mental energy into the enchantment, attempting to break through the enchantment like the previous two occasions. The skeletal staff in his hand shone brightly in tricolored light. Bang! Han Sha-O had suddenly struck out, yet the enchantment had not been broken and Han Sha-O himself was repelled. Right when Han Sha-O was becoming extremely frightened, the countless snake-like energy that barged into Han Sha-O's mind suddenly became orderly from its original chaos, forming lines of bright magic symbols. As Han Sha-O had delved into necromancy magic for a long time, when those magic symbols appeared in his mind, he was extremely surprised. Soon after, the tricolored light from the skeletal staff in his hand suddenly became brighter as three strands of demonic light climbed along Han Sha-O's arm and slowly entered his body. The tricolored light from the skeletal staff traveled up Han Sha-O's arm, directly flowing into Han Sha-O's mind, coming together with the countless magical symbols and arranging into paragraphs of incantations that Han Sha-O could understand, as well as paragraphs of information. Han Sha-O stared blankly for a moment before quickly coming to himself, hastily memorizing the information that had appeared in his mind. The paragraphs of incantations and information were rapidly imprinted into his mind. The entire process didn't persist for too long. With the degree of development of his brain, Han Sha-O very quickly remembered the information within his mind. Before becoming a sacred magus necromancer, the next enchantment cannot be opened. It contains the secret for a necromancer to become God. The skeletal staff possesses three basic abilities. Apart from the first ability of doubling the might of spells, the other two abilities require additional incantations. The incantations specifically are Enchantment of Fear, Enchantment of Weakness, and Enchantment of Age. The incantations and way of applying these enchantments are the magic symbols swiveled around Han Sha-O's mind, finally forming three pieces of information. The first was that only a sacred magus can enter the next layer. Secondly, the incantations for rejuvenation and entering the netherworld, and lastly the three long lost enchantments of necromancers. The next layer actually had the secret for a necromancer to become God. Han Sha-O was extremely surprised as he looked ahead toward the path pathway blocked by a single enchantment. He was shocked by the information within his mind and was lost in thought for a long time. There were too many thoughts appearing in his mind. Han Shao only slowly suppressed his chaotic state of mind after a long time. The first piece of information still didn't mean much to him, but the second and third piece of information was of great use at the present time. Of the three mysterious abilities of the skeletal staff, the ability to double the power of spells didn't need a supporting incantation, but the rejuvenation ability and the ability for the soul to freely enter the netherworld were not as simple to bring about. For example, for the soul to travel back and forth from the netherworld, it required the support of many complicated incantations as well as a precise understanding of your own soul. For the rejuvenation ability to succeed, it needed to utilize the energy contained within the skeletal staff. This energy wasn't something everyone could endure, and only those that have been approved by the skeletal staff would be able to transform themselves through the energy contained within the skeletal staff. Previously, Wolf obviously fulfilled this condition. According to Wolf, all the disciples of the Calamity Church seemed to fulfill the condition to be reformed by the skeletal staff. All the old fellows within the Calamity Church who had lived for countless years could make use of this energy to return to their youth. Enchantment of fear, enchantment of weakness, and enchantment of age were three of the ancient necromancer's large-scale magic enchantments. Enemies who were shrouded by the enchantment of fear would have dread forming in their hearts. Their ability to judge and their willpower would be influenced by the enchantment of fear and drop substantially. The enchantment of weakness, on the other hand, would cause enemies to lose the strength of their bodies, causing their fighting strength to decrease greatly. The most fearsome was definitely the enchantment of age. However, the enchantment of age could only be used by a sacred magus necromancer. Necromancers who reach the rank of sacred magus would already have an extremely exquisite understanding of the soul. By utilizing an enormous amount of mental energy to deploy the enchantment of age, any living creature that enters the enchantment would age faster. If the living creature stayed within the enchantment of age for over a fixed amount of time, the living creature would die of old age immediately. This was an extremely malicious spell which reduced the origin vitality of a living creature's soul. No matter how strong an opponent was, if they were not as accomplished in understanding the soul, they would be helpless within the enchantment of age. Han Shao was able to immediately practice the enchantment of fear and enchantment of weakness. Using these two enchantments in tandem would also create a layering effect. Using these enchantments together with a necromancer's undead army would simply be a nightmare to any enemy. Perhaps it was precisely because combining these two enchantments with the undead army was really too formidable that during the glorious era of necromancers they would be eliminated from all the magician associations within the continent. From that moment on, the three enchantments disappeared forever from the world. The reason why the enchantment of age could only be practiced by a sacred magus necromancer was perhaps due to the frightening power of the enchantment of age, which caused it to be unable to overlay with the other two enchantments. No matter how strong a living creature was, once it entered the enchantment of age and didn't exit immediately, its body would rapidly age. Even if it immediately left the enchantment of age, a part of its body would still be affected and would never recover. However, Han Shao's skeletal staff was able to let victims of the enchantment of age rejuvenate. Combining both the enchantment of age and the skeletal staff, everything could be considered to be in control. He would be able to send his own men into the enchantment to intercept the enemy. And when the enemy has retreated or died, Han Shao can use the skeletal staff to rejuvenate the youth lost by his own people within the enchantment of age. The practice method as well as the full incantations of the three great enchantments that were the secret behind necromancers ruling the continent were completely engraved into Han Shao's mind at this moment. TL note: I'm still not very satisfied with the names of the three enchantments. Will probably change them when I come up with a better name. Do leave comments with your suggestions. Chapter 407 Bigwigs. When Han Shao obtained the information that he couldn't enter the next level before becoming a sacred magus necromancer, he didn't force matters and withdrew along his original path. Numerous magical spells and practice methods had been imprinted on Han Shao's mind. However, If he wanted to succeed in practicing all of them, it wasn't an easy thing to do. Hence Han Shao didn't stay in the cemetery of death any longer and instead returned to his mansion in Asan City through the teleportation array. Having left Asan City for a few days, Han Shao sought out Steward Kallus once he returned to find out what has been happening in Asan City. King Uttard has already made known his stance in the last few days. He had steeled his heart to help Lawrence ascend the throne. The entire Lancelot Empire was momentarily in shock, unable to understand why Uttard made this decision. When the Dark Mantle organization King Uttard's hand in the shadows suddenly having closer relations with Lawrence, many already guessed that they were also leaning toward Lawrence. The Empire's legendary figure Sacred Sword Master Karl also no longer sat on the fence, finally announcing officially that he supported Lawrence to be the next king. With King Uttard's help, Lawrence's trusted aides gradually started to grasp power within the Empire. His foster father and uncle Boris received important positions, becoming influential ministers within the Empire. Everyone could make out Uttard's intentions. In this period of time, the other princes and the powers under them visited the palace more often. Duke Ashburn and Prince Charles even visited the palace a few times a day, attempting to rely on their own abilities to change His Majesty's decision. There were also some stubborn conservative ministers who allied and petitioned Uttard to change his mind. They believed that as an illegitimate child, Lawrence simply wasn't fit for the honor of being at the apex of power in the Lancelot Empire. These people were old officials, and their old-fashioned noble traditions caused them to be unable to accept the matter. They felt that this was blasphemy towards the royal family of the Lancelot Empire. King Uther's queen and his favored concubines had also joined the opposing side one after another in order to get an answer from him. In a short time, Asan City descended into chaos. Yet at this time, Uttard's illness suddenly relapsed and he fell into a coma, even showing signs of being able to hold on. When the princes saw such a situation happen, they followed King Uttard's orders overtly but secretly started to assemble their forces in preparation for purging the incoming powers. Within the seemingly tranquil Asan City, many unfamiliar faces started to appear as a storm was slowly brewing. Once King Uttard died, the long-anticipated storm would inevitably break out with a bang. At that time, it would be difficult to say if it would engulf the entire Lancelot Empire. At this moment, the commander of the southern border Firenze suddenly returned to Asan City. This baleful star would cause the already chaotic Asan City to be filled with even more variables. As he listened to Steward Kallus's description, Han Shao was stunned. He really didn't anticipate that in just a few days Asan City would actually experience such drastic changes. It seems that ever since King Uttard knew that his days were numbered, his swift and decisive actions played a huge role. In the few days where Han Shao was away, Phoebe had come to look for him 3 times, while Lawrence came twice. Emily and some of the nobles in Asan City had also come to visit him. When Kallus finished his report, Han Shao thought for a moment before immediately heading for Lawrence's residence. Lawrence was currently the focus of all of Asan City. In the cruel contest for the throne, Lawrence could not fail. Only with Lawrence's ascension could Han Shao's interests be maintained and even progress to the next level. After hurrying into Lawrence's residence, he was informed by the steward that Lawrence was currently in a secret discussion with others. However, the steward clearly knew of the unusual relationship between Han Shao and Lawrence. When he saw Han Shao arrive, he immediately went to report. After a while, the steward returned and respectfully led Han Shao to Lawrence's secret meeting. Han Shao saw many acquaintances within Lawrence's secret room, including Lawrence's adoptive father Evie, Uncle Boris, Phoebe, Emily, Betteridge family's old Han, and 10 other unfamiliar nobles who seemed to also be supporting Lawrence. When Han Shao arrived, Lawrence immediately stood up and smiled as he went up to him and said, "Where did you run off to? Why have you only arrived now?" Lawrence had also gone to the palace many times in recent days. When Uttard met with him alone, he repeatedly urged Lawrence to keep Han Shao firmly by his side and that Han Shao was the key to his future. Although Uttard did not divulge astrologer Grace's evaluation of Han Shao, Lawrence was an extremely smart person. He already figured out what was going on from the attitudes of the people around him and understood that Han Shao would be his life's benefactor. It was precisely because of this that as soon as Han Shao walked inside, Lawrence was still the first to stand up and personally welcomed Han Shao inside in an extremely amiable casual manner. This came as a slight surprise to some of his supporters who weren't familiar with Han Shao. Nothing much. I had some stuff to settle, so I went out for a while. Wow, there are so many people. Han Shao casually fobbed Lawrence off. He couldn't help but exclaim when he saw the surrounding people. Brian, you are really amazing. In such a short period of time you have become a Marquis. I indeed didn't evaluate you wrongly. Lawrence's uncle Boris laughed as he greeted Han Shao. Originally Lawrence had arranged for Han Shao to hold a post within Boris's northern army in order to let Han Shao gain military merit. Boris himself was only just a count. Who would have thought that Han Shao had risen up the ranks in such a short time? Based on their current authority, Han Shao had clearly surpassed him. However, while in the Northern Army, Boris was extremely friendly toward Han Shao as he knew of Han Shao's prospective growth. Their relationship in private was also pretty good. Hence when he saw Han Shao coming in, he immediately greeted him amicably. Hee, Lord Boris overpraises me. Han Shao smiled as he bowed to Boris. Sitting next to Boris were Emily and Phoebe. The two of them were extremely close to each other, constantly whispering softly. Only after Han Shao came in did their bright eyes stay fixed on him. Seated beside Emily was old Han, hence she turned her head after glancing at Han Shao so as to avoid arousing suspicion. However, Phoebe seemed to still harbor some residual anger as she couldn't resist glaring at Han Shao a few more times. Her beautiful big eyes revealed an angry overtone, seeming to rebuke him for his mysterious disappearance. Young man, not bad. I still haven't had the time to thank you for saving me previously. Ha. I've told you that when you have time, come over and have some fun. I will definitely entertain you well. I didn't expect that till now you still haven't visited. What's the matter? Could it be that you look down on my Betteridge family? Old Han smiled as he greeted Han Shao before pretending to be angry as he spoke. I've already gone to the Betteridge family and even snatched your daughter-in-law, Han Shao said inwardly as he kept a wronged expression on his face. He innocently spread his arms and explained, you are also aware that I have always been at Bretel City and only got back recently. There are too many matters to handle. I will definitely visit the next time I have time. Okay then. I was just joking with you. I know that you are now a very busy person. Looking at you, I truly feel somewhat amazed. You saved my life the last time we met, but at that time you were still an unknown. Who would have thought that in just a few years you have already become a formidable figure within the Empire? Awesome. Old Han smiled with emotion. As Old Han was talking, Lawrence had already brought Han Shao to his side and pointed at the chair next to him, indicating for Han Shao to sit. Only then did he introduce the strangers around him to Han Shao. I won't introduce these people as you already know them anyway. However, you are perhaps unfamiliar with these people, but in the future we will all be on the same side. This is the current Lord of Valent City. Each time Lawrence introduced someone, Han Shao would nod in respect. These people were either lord of their cities or either a count or a marquis. They all are top characters among the nobles. With Lawrence's introduction, Han Shao slowly understood the powers under his control. 3 counts and 2 marquis. They were all powerful figures within Asen City and were all middle-aged. They were either in charge of a big family, held key positions under King Uttard, or had military power. It seemed like only the people of their age would not stubbornly hold on to the idea that an illegitimate child could not obtain the throne. As Lawrence introduced them, the nobles would nod amicably toward Han Shao. Currently Han Shao had the authority over Bretel City and was favored by the king. His status as a marquis was similar to their own status. In addition, they were now in the same faction. It would be odd if they were unfriendly toward Han Shao. When Lawrence finished the introductions, Han Shao was more or less familiar with Lawrence's current strength. These marquises and counts were people that held true power. In addition, he had the support of the Betteridge family and the Dark Mantle. Furthermore, there were still a few experts that surpassed worldly powers that supported him. In this case, Lawrence truly possessed the means to oppose eldest Prince Charles. It seemed like that Uttard's swift and decisive actions had indeed brought about the greatest benefit to Lawrence. It caused Lawrence's power to rise greatly while also convincing more nobles to support him, allowing Lawrence to possess the qualifications to go against Charles and vie for the throne. After Lawrence introduced the nobles that Han Shuo were not familiar with, he paused for a while before continuing. We were just discussing a few matters. Let me summarize them for you. Currently we should use our forces to their maximum potential and let the talents under us acquire power while my father is still alive. On the other hand, based on our current foundation, we still need to obtain stronger support in preparation for Charles and others' desperate actions. The empire's authority is basically in the hands of the nobles. Even though my royal father clearly supports me, if those nobles support Charles, they would still collaborate with Charles to resist me when my royal father dies. This matter is extremely hard to solve. The most important issue is my identity. Those stubborn fellows clearly would not choose me, but they hold too much power in their hands that without them making mistakes, my father has no means whatsoever to reduce the authority in their hands. This really is a headache-inducing problem. Han Shuo didn't say a word after he sat down, only listening to Lawrence's descriptions. When Lawrence finished talking, Han Shuo understood that the situation was not as ideal as he had imagined. It seemed like even though they had uttered support, Charles' prior advantage was too huge. Lawrence would never be able to peacefully ascend the throne. Your Highness, Duke Ashburn has an enormous influence within the empire. The bigwigs he has made friends with include the majority of nobles. With him supporting the eldest prince, they would be extremely hard to deal with. Currently His Majesty is able to suppress him, but if he dies, Duke Ashburn would surely oppose with all his strength. The power in his hands is enough to alter the entire situation. This is really difficult to manage. A count named Talric said to Lawrence. That's right. Once His Majesty meets his demise, no one can control Duke Ashburn. This is truly hard to handle. Lawrence's foster father Evie said while frowning. You all neglected the person that just got to Awesome City. If Lawrence can obtain this person's support, I think the situation would be totally different. Old Han suddenly chuckled and said. When they heard those words, everyone was moved, but they sighed soon after. Boris replied, that unreasonable madman is indeed no ordinary person, but he doesn't even listen to His Majesty's orders. Who would be able to convince him? Lawrence was distracted for a moment before looking fervently at Han Shuo. However, when he saw Emily and Phoebe, he hurriedly retracted his gaze. Han Shuo realized simply from Lawrence's expression that he knew of the relationship between Fanny and the madman Firenze. He cannot help but sigh inwardly. He knew that Lawrence definitely had a goal when Lawrence painstakingly made friends with himself. Lawrence had actually started to rope him in so long ago. It seems that of all the princes, Lawrence had planned the furthest ahead. Chapter 408. Fanny's deep emotions. Han Shuo did not express his opinion on what they discussed next, merely thinking about the madman Firenze's arrival in Awesome City and the effect it would cause on him. Based on what Han Shuo had promised Fanny, he knew that since Firenze had reached Awesome City, he would definitely meet Firenze in the near future. The matter of Han Shuo already having Phoebe and Emily by his side would be exposed sooner or later. He wasn't sure what great reaction Fanny would have once she found out. It was the same for Phoebe, who had just accepted Emily yet still had residual anger. If she found out about Fanny as well, she might insist on bringing out a cage. Unfortunately, since things have reached such a situation, there was no way he could conceal it any longer. Brian! Lawrence suddenly shouted twice. Han Shuo suddenly came to his senses. He looked astonished at Lawrence and asked, "What's up? What do you think we should do next? Charles is our main opponent. Do you have any ideas?" Lawrence looked brightly at Han Shuo as he sought Han Shuo's opinion. Han Shuo was currently feeling troubled and simply did not seriously listen to their discussion. He shook his head in response and said, "I don't have any good ideas." When Lawrence heard Han Shuo's reply and saw that he had a vexed expression, he understood that Han Shuo was perhaps occupied by some other thoughts. He nodded without asking further, continuing to discuss with the other nobles instead. After a short while they finished their discussion. The nobles left left in succession, including Emily and old Han, only leaving Phoebe, Lawrence and Han Shao in the room. "Brian, thank you for introducing Mr. Crowley to me, allowing me to have such a strong Grand Magus by my side." After the rest had left, Lawrence thanked Han Shao sincerely. Han Shao was stunned for a moment before responding and said that Crowley has joined you? "Yes, Mr. Crowley said that he followed your advice and decided to join me." Lawrence smiled as he explained. "That's good. Lawrence, I have some matters to speak with Phoebe. We'll be leaving first." Han Shao pondered for a moment before saying to Lawrence, "Alright, then you two can leave first." Lawrence smiled as he got up to send them off. Phoebe pouted, appearing to still be angry at Han Shao. Under Lawrence's gaze, she got into her own carriage. Han Shao hesitated for a moment, but on second thought, since many people knew of his relationship with Phoebe, he got on soon after. Based on the current situation, his relationship with the three women would perhaps no longer able to be concealed. Han Shao seriously considered for a moment, deciding to just confess to the three women. Of the three women, Emily was the only one who wouldn't mind it too much. Besides, Emily faintly knew of some information through the dark mantle, hence Han Shao wasn't worried about her. However, both Phoebe and Fanny were huge problems. He was unable to conceal it further even if he wanted to, and it would be worse if they found out by themselves. Reaching this situation, Han Shao really had no other ideas and resigned to his fate and tell them the truth. Within the elegant horse carriage, Han Shao had a reserved expression as he remained silent. Phoebe's anger toward Han Shao had yet to diminish, pouting and also not saying a word. In a moment, the atmosphere within the carriage was somewhat tense. After a short while, Han Shao took a deep breath, turning his head to look at Phoebe and said in a low voice, "Phoebe, apart from you and Emily, I still have another woman." Phoebe's eyebrows raised, her eyes overflowing with disbelief. There were signs of rage coming from her delicate body as she clenched her teeth and unwaveringly stared at Han Shao before saying sharply, What did you say?" Apart from Emily and yourself, I still have another woman. Her name is Fanny. She was previously my teacher. She's also the first woman I liked." Han Shao sounded downcast, sighing when he finished. What is the meaning of this? Why are you telling me this?" Phoebe couldn't contain her rage. She already found it hard to accept Emily. Now Han Shao suddenly said that there is another woman. Phoebe's mind buzzed as she felt a sharp pain penetrating her heart. "She is a teacher at my academy and took care of me from the start." Han Shao described his relationship with Fanny. He then sighed as he gazed at Phoebe and said, "Sorry, I shouldn't have deceived you. That was because I didn't want you to be happy. That was what had happened. I'm saying so much to you not because I want you to forgive me, but to let you know that as a matter of fact I'm truly a bad person like you said, and am even the extremely bad kind. Leave immediately. I don't want to ever see you again." Phoebe cried incessantly, suddenly crying out sharply to the point of losing her voice. When Han Shao saw Phoebe losing control of her emotions, he suddenly felt an extremely strong grievance. He knew that it would be useless to say anything at this moment, and thus, simply nodded before opening the carriage's window and flew out. Han Shao knew since a long time ago that Phoebe was a headstrong person. Such an independent woman would not easily forgive him for deceiving her. Perhaps it was precisely because Phoebe had strong feelings for him, hence she was so hurt by what Han Shao said today. Han Shao suddenly understood the pain of the woman he loved dearly. The anguish he felt didn't seem any less than what Phoebe was feeling. Han Shao himself had an extreme pain in his heart. Carrying that intense pain in his heart, Han Shao made his way toward Babylon Academy of Magic and Force. When Han Shao reached Fanny's laboratory, it just happened to be after lunchtime. Ever since Han Shao visited a few days ago, Fanny felt extremely content and was very cheerful the past few days. When she opened the laboratory door intending to first rest for a while, she suddenly saw Han Shao, who was seated on a chair within the room. The current Han Shao seemed absent-minded and looked somewhat pale. He sat gloomily without saying a word, as though he had an extremely heavy load on his mind. With a glance, Fanny suddenly realized that the current Han Shao was completely different from the past. Previously, Han Shao always had a strong fighting spirit or was frivolous and improper. He had never been as downcast and absent-minded as he was today. "Brian, what happened to you? Are you ill?" Fanny was flustered, hurrying to Han Shao-O's side, raising a hand to feel his forehead. Hearing Fanny's voice, Han Shao was startled. When he saw Fanny filled with concern for himself, the pain in his heart increased. He stared blankly for a while, perhaps wanting to feel more of Fanny's gentle feelings, as he simply stared deeply at Fanny as he carefully appreciated the temperature of Fanny's warm hand. "What's wrong? Why are you saying anything? What's going on?" When Fanny saw Han Shao not saying a word and simply staring blankly at herself, she felt more frenetic, impatiently questioning Han Shao as her worry was displayed on her face. "Fanny, I've let you down." Han Shao, who was staring blankly at Fanny, didn't know if this tenderness would still exist after he spoke. However, he knew that he was unable to hide. Finally sighed and said to Fanny, "You aren't ill, right?" "What nonsense are you saying?" Fanny beamed as she pulled back her hand from Han Shao's forehead, looking tenderly at Han Shao's eyes as she replied. Han Shao didn't dare to look straight at Fanny's eyes and guiltily lowered his head. He suddenly remembered that he had not had physical relations with Fanny. In that case, as long as he told Fanny the truth, it wouldn't cause much harm to Fanny. Toward his loved ones, Han Shao had never been a heartless person. The reason why Han Shao had concealed this matter for such a long time, apart from enjoying the wonderful feeling of having multiple women, it was because he didn't want to heartlessly cause them pain. However, Han Shao only suddenly realized at this moment that his actions of hiding the truth would indeed not cause them pain in the short term, but such actions would cause them a lifetime of anguish. This was precisely why Han Shao decided to sincerely explain the truth to both parties. However, the guilty Han Shao didn't dare face Fanny's gentle feelings. Under Fanny's impatient inquiry, Han Shao used the same downcast voice to explain, "Apart from you, I still have two other women. I've let you down." Fanny's hand, which was tenderly caressing Han Shao's hair, suddenly stopped. Han Shao instinctively raised his head to look, suddenly realizing that Fanny had frozen in position, her tender eyes filled with helplessness and pain. Her rosy lips paled, constantly squirmed as if she wanted to say something yet was unable to make up any sound. Two streams of tears flowed down her smooth cheeks, sliding down her neck. After a very long time, Fanny's dimmed eyes focused on Han Shao. She had a bleak expression, sounding forlorn as she said softly, "Brian, are you telling me this because you want to break off our relationship?" Han Shao froze, unable to understand Fanny's response. He had thought that Fanny should be furious like Phoebe was chasing him away regardless of everything. He did not think that in this moment Fanny actually had such a grim and frightened expression, like a helpless blossoming flower bud. An intense feeling of self-blame suddenly rushed into Han Shao's heart. Han Shao's eyes reddened as he pulled Fanny into his embrace, choking with emotion as he said, "Sorry, it's all my fault. Sorry, Brian. I've already known long ago regarding the matters between Miss Phoebe and yourself." Fanny faintly spoke before exerting all her strength to embrace Han Shao tightly, as though afraid that Han Shao would depart from her side. Han Shao had a lifeless expression, subconsciously hugging Fanny tightly without knowing the reason why. His mind was filled with questions. She actually knew. How did she find out? "You are the dazzling new star of the Empire. Information about you is spread everywhere. Among them naturally includes matters regarding Miss Phoebe and yourself. It's funny that you still deceive yourself and assume that I'm unaware. The first time I heard that information, I didn't believe it. However, slowly, through my own understanding, I finally believed the information. I'm truly a weak woman. I should have always maintained a distance from you from the start and not fall for your enticement. However, in the days where you aren't around, my mind is completely filled with your image, forever impossible to get rid of. Sorry, I'm unable to do it. Even though I'm fully aware that you already have Miss Phoebe, I'm still unable to leave you. Once I imagined that we would no longer interact, I would feel suffocated. You would never be able to understand this feeling. I'm useless. I'm unable to walk away from your vortex of emotions and instead can't help but sink deeper." Fanny muttered as she mocked herself while in Han Shao's bosom, her voice full of helplessness and misery. Her narration from the bottom of her heart ruthlessly tore apart Han Shao's opinionated guise. Han Shao felt dizzy from an incomparably intense happiness. Even though this happiness contained a hint of extreme agony, even though this happiness made Han Shao's lips dry up and his eyes redden, causing his firm heart to weaken. "I know Phoebe is a good woman. Have you come here after deciding to leave me?" Fanny murmured in sorrow, her tone filled with agony and desolation. Her tears were like a pearl necklace that had snapped, pearl after pearl dripping on Han Shao-Oh's shoulder. "No," Han Shao bellowed before continuing to say, "I will never leave you." "Never. I said so much just to request your forgiveness. I have never thought of leaving you." "Sorry, it's all my fault, it's all my fault." Fanny's delicate body trembled slightly as she suddenly stood up, teardrops still hanging from her eyes that indescribably anticipated gazing toward Han Shao-Oh's face. Her voice trembled and was filled with disbelief as she said softly, "Brian, are you saying the truth?" Repeatedly nodding his head, Han Shao had never been as serious as he was now, his voice choking with emotion as he guaranteed, "So long as you don't leave me, I will never be the one to let go and leave you. I promise." "But I only recognize the fact that I can never leave you after 2 years of torment and suffering. I don't mind that you are with Miss Phoebe and other women. However, would Miss Phoebe care about my existence?" Fanny said bitterly. "I don't know. However, I would give her and myself some time. Perhaps she would finally make a good decision. However, regardless of her decision, it would not change my feelings for you." "It definitely won't," Han Shao said resolutely. Fanny's eyes were filled with surprise and happiness that couldn't be contained. She took the initiative to hug Han Shao tightly again, standing on tiptoe to ardently kiss Han Shao. Her hands had brazenly slipped into Han Shao's clothes, caressing Han Shao's strong body while trying to help Han Shao undress. Chapter 409. Refusal. It was unclear what Fanny's thoughts were, as for the first time she was so spontaneous and so passionate. Both her kisses and actions were incomparably bold and unrestrained. At this moment Han Shao was unexpectedly the passive receiver. Fanny's previous words contained a sea of deep emotions, brought about an enormous shock to Han Shao, causing him to feel extremely guilty toward Fanny. When the two of them kissed, Han Shao, who had always been the aggressor in the past, instead wasn't that overbearing. "Oh, Brian." Fanny's lovable appearance was bright red and contained shyness as she moaned softly. Han Shao's outer clothing had unconsciously been taken off by Fanny. Han Shao's naked upper body was extremely robust. Each inch of muscle seemed to be brimming with explosive force. When Fanny became out of breath, her fragrant lips left Han Shao's as she took deep breaths. As she gazed at Han Shao's chiseled body, her eyes were brimming with dense amorous feelings. Do me now." There was a mouse-like squeak. Fanny blushed as she buried her head in Han Shao's chest, inhaling the rich manly scent from Han Shao's body. She simply felt that her heart was in a mess and was able to clearly hear her own heart beating. "We can't." Han Shao smiled bitterly as he refused. Fanny lost her head out of fear, suddenly lifting her head to stare at Han Shao. Her blushing expression was clearly filled with sorrow and puzzlement, her eyes brimming with doubt and panic. Teacher Jean is coming over and it's presently daytime. You still need to go teach a class later. How about at night?" Han Shao smiled bitterly, scratching his head as he spoke softly to Fanny. Hearing Han Shao's explanation, Fanny suddenly came to her senses, her face still red, as she hurriedly dressed Han Shao and said anxious, "That's right, that's right. In that case you should leave first, we'll talk about it another day." Right at this moment Jean's footsteps had already neared to the point that Fanny herself could hear them. Fanny became even more hurried as she'd harbored ulterior motives, desperately urging Han Shao to make haste and leave. Han Shao smiled bitterly and nodded while draping his shirt over his shoulders, departing Fanny's laboratory before Jean had reached. As he headed back to his residence, Han Shao felt ineffably moved by Fanny's deep emotions. He had never expected that Fanny had actually been struggling bitterly for so long because of him. Also, even though Fanny knew about his matters, she still didn't want to leave him. Her strong feelings caused Han Shao to feel that he was unable to return the favor to her. Just as Han Shao reached his residence, Steward Callas hurriedly rushed over, having a grave expression as he said, "Lord Marquis Grand Duke Ashburn and eldest Prince Charles request a meeting. They have already been waiting for some time." "What are they here for?" Han Shao was startled and knitted his brows in puzzlement. "I don't know," Callas replied respectfully. With his heart filled with suspicion, Han Shao walked toward the hall used for receiving esteemed guests. With a glance he saw eldest Prince Charles, who he last saw in the northern rose garden. It was actually the first time he was meeting Duke Ashburn, who was by Charles's side. When he looked at Duke Ashburn, Han Shao immediately knew that he was a crafty crafty old fox and definitely not a person easy to deal with. The two of them had a relaxed expression as they sipped tea within the hall, actually not bringing a single attendant with them. Once Han Shao heard Steward Kala's report, he immediately sent out a mystic demon to observe the surroundings of the mansion. Only then did he notice that there were two luxurious horse carriages stopped by the front gate and a squadron of knights keeping watch by their side. Han Shao, who was vexed due to Fanny and Phoebe's matters, had been deep in thought on the journey back and had neglected the surrounding situation. Only after he instructed the mystic demon to circle around the estate did he realize the different situations within the mansion. As this was the capital Ocean City, Ashburn and eldest Prince Charles, who had openly come to visit Han Shao, were naturally unafraid that Han Shao would suddenly rise in revolt. Hence they boldly left the squadron of knights outside, not bringing a single expert along for protection. On the surface the two of them still seemed to have quite the presence. When he saw Han Shao enter, Ashburn glanced at Charles before standing. He smiled and nodded toward Han Shao before saying, "Marquis Brian has such a well-known reputation. Seeing you today, it is indeed well deserved. An outstanding male like Marquis Brian is truly rare within our Lancelot empire." Ha ha. Han Shao wasn't in a good mood. Having heard many occasions where old Fox Ashburn and Charles threw their weight around, he didn't have a good impression of the two of them. He replied while faking a smile, "Lord Duke is overpraising me. In front of Lord Duke no one else is fit to be famed for a well-known reputation. Greetings, eldest prince." Han Shao then bowed toward eldest Prince Charles in accordance to etiquette. He be at ease. Previously there were some misunderstandings with Marquis Brian. I've come this time precisely because I wish to our prior misunderstandings. Eldest Prince Charles looked at Han Shao amiably, his friendly manner as different as night and day from the previous time at the Rose Garden. "Your Highness is too courteous. We never had any misunderstandings. The way you say it makes me worry about what had happened." Han Shao was stunned before replying Charles, while having an expression that he was unable to make head or tail of the situation. Coughing softly, Duke Ashburn smiled and said, "Previously we had Cameron to assist with some matters. I didn't expect that Mr. Cameron actually became a competitor to Miss Phoebe's business. Cameron truly deserves to die." Actually using Charles' title to intimidate people, audaciously finding trouble with Miss Phoebe. At the start we didn't know of this matter. However, I suppose that Marquis Brian would perhaps misunderstand that we had prompted Cameron to act that way. Hence we have specially come to clarify the matter with Marquis Brian. We hope that Marquis Brian wouldn't misunderstand us due to that matter. Honestly speaking, Charles and I have always extremely admired you and wish to be friends with you. Misunderstanding? There was simply no misunderstanding. Without your instructions, why would Cameron dare to use his connection with you to intimidate Phoebe? Han Shao sneered inwardly. He already understood their goal from Ashburn and Charles' tone. He was certain that this was because of his status in Uttard's heart. This caused the two of them to realize his importance. This was why they would deign and deliberately want to make friends with him. That must be a misunderstanding. That matter had happened so long ago that I almost forgot about it. There's nothing much to discuss. Han Shao squinted his eyes, playing down the issue. Shortly after, he smiled as he looked at Ashburn and Charles while asking, "May I know, are there any other matters causing Lord Duke and His Highness to visit?" The development of Bretel City has been the most inspirational news in recent days. The city lord of Seamist City, which neighbors Bretel City, Kairov, has extremely close relations with me. If Bretel City and Seamist City are able to work closely together, the development in all areas would be even faster. My visit today is precisely to discuss with Marquis Brian the aid that Seamist City can provide Bretel City, such as manpower and resources that Bretel City needs urgently. Eldest Prince Charles smiled as he looked at Han Shao, slowly explaining his proposal. Seamist City Lord Kairov was a member of the Haug family. His sister Kalina was eldest Prince Charles' wife. His relationship with Charles was nationally extremely intimate. The distance between Seamist City and Bretel City isn't very far. If Seamist City was able to provide some effective help, it would naturally be extremely beneficial to Bretel City's development. This This was something Han Sha-o was aware of. In that case, what does Bretel City have to invest on their part? Han Sha-o remained calm and collected as he inquired. There's no need for any investment. As long as I'm able to gain Marquis Brian's friendship, I would be satisfied. Charles's scorching gaze was fixed on Han Sha-o as he replied. Grand Duke Ashburn smiled as he looked at Han Sha-o. He pondered for a moment before saying, Marquis Brian, to be frank, I admire you greatly. If you don't mind, we can discuss in depth on the possibility of many collaborations. The power and benefit we are able to provide you far surpasses what others can give you. As long as you work together with us, power, wealth, women are all easily obtained. Han Sha-o chuckled as he looked at the two of them, firmly shaking his head under their expectant gazes, and said, I'm sorry, I'm a person who cherishes old friendships and also know to return the favor of others. Both of you should understand what I mean. Hearing Han Sha-o's response, eldest Prince Charles' expression sank. Just as he wanted to speak out, Ashburn glared at him. Soon after, Ashburn smiled and said, so that is the case. I understand. Since that is the case, we'll take our leave. We apologize for brazenly disturbing. Hope you can forgive us. After he was stared at by Ashburn, Charles did not suddenly forget himself. Merely his calm gaze toward Han Sha-o had an added resentment, as if angry at Han Sha-o's rejection and failing to appreciate his kindness. In that case, I won't see you out. Han Sha-o looked astonishedly at Grand Duke Ashburn. He didn't expect that Ashburn would actually be that direct, not dragging on the situation the slightest. Once he understood that there was no hope. Marquis Brian, do take care of yourself. Before Charles left, he suddenly turned back to look at Han Sha-o, implying a hidden intention within his words. I thank eldest Prince for his reminder. I will be careful. Han Sha-o's expression suddenly turned cold, replying sarcastically. Han Sha-o could clearly hear the threat within Charles' tone. He knew that after today there was no chance of being friends with Charles and Ashburn, and could only be enemies till one side is dead. Chapter 410 Sudden changes within Osun City. Han Sha-o knew that Charles definitely wouldn't let him off. However, Han Sha-o didn't expect that Charles's retaliation would come so quickly and that violently. That same night, Han Sha-o, who was studying the method of connecting to the netherworld, suddenly felt through his consciousness several formidable auras that were gradually heading for his mansion from afar. Han Sha-o was suddenly roused from his contemplation, immediately sending out 12 mystic demons spreading out in 12 directions, with the mansion as the center like a spider web. A 500-strong knight troop, including 200 temple knights from the Church of Light, headed for Han Sha-o's mansion from 4 directions. The Church of Light's Light Grand Magus Kasi, a few other unfamiliar experts from the Church of Light, as well as formidable death sworn under Ashburn, were separately leading troops as they encircled the mansion. There was no moonlight that night. In the pitch-black curtain of night, they did not conceal themselves, simply heading openly toward Han Sha-o's mansion. Han Sha-o was able to see the killing intent within the eyes of these knights. Han Sha-o was alarmed, hurriedly exiting his hidden room. The scene he saw through the 12 mystic demons simply exceeded Han Sha-o's imagination. No matter how large the influence Ashburn and Charles had, how would they dare to be so unbridled in the capital of Lancelot Empire, Osun City? The area Han Sha-o was living in was surrounded by wealthy and respectable people, and were all influential characters within the empire. Even though it was a moonless night, such a large movement would definitely be unable to be concealed. Furthermore, Osun City was the Dark Metal's headquarters. Ashburn was, after all, not king. Uttered. On what basis is he so unbridled? A series of misgivings rushed into Han Sha-o's mind. He only felt that Ashburn must be insane. Such a crazy movement definitely shouldn't be something that old fox dares to do. Unfortunately, with the appearance of Kasi and the presence of other members of his dukedom already proved that this operation is indeed incited by Ashburn. While Han Sha-o was still at a loss, a nearby mansion suddenly ignited in flames which reached the sky. A mystic demon just happened to see the situation in that direction and observed a group of knights charge in and kill everyone they see. In the blink of an eye, blood dyed the ground red, and not even one servant was let off. Han Sha-o vaguely recalled that the mention should be Count Talric's. Talric was inclined toward Lawrence. Han Sha-o even saw him in the morning and found out through Lawrence's introduction that his mansion wasn't far from his own. He didn't expect that Talric's mansion would already be in its current state. A thought flashed in Han Sha-o's mind in sudden realization. Since Ashburn dared to act so brazenly and disregard King Utter's authority, there are only two possibilities. Either Ashburn knew that the situation was far from good and preemptively revolted. The other possibility was that King Utter had already died. In that case, Ashburn would no longer be restricted by anyone. Hence he would dare to freely act, eradicating the people who were detrimental to him at the fastest speed and swiftly take Awesome City under his control. However, if Ashburn wanted to revolt, he should have acted from the day King Uttard made known that he would support Lawrence, and definitely wouldn't look on unfeelingly as Uttard delegated power bit by bit to Lawrence. It seems that the first possibility was much smaller and that King Uttard's sudden demise was instead the most plausible. With this suspicion, he only kept 2 mystic demons within his mansion, spreading the other 10 mystic demons further away. Among them, 1 mystic demon directly headed in the direction of the royal palace. Through the mystic demons, Han Sha-o discovered even more troops being mobilized in the pitch-black night. There were other regions who were similarly engaged in cruel slaughter. These included nobles who supported Lawrence as well as powers under the second and third prince. All of a sudden, huge clouds of smoke rose from the entire inner Awesome City. Ashburn and eldest Prince Charles had without a doubt already launched their operation of massacring the influences that opposed them to officially start on this moonless night. Any powers that opposed Ashburn and Charles were fated to meet with death or injuries tonight. Coming to this realization, Han Sha-o rapidly headed for Steward Calla's room. Steward Calla's was quite old and hence didn't sleep deeply. Furthermore, Han Sha-o deliberately made louder footsteps when he headed over. Hence Calla's immediately woke up. "Lord Marquis, what's going on?" Calla's had never seen Han Sha-o that impatient. He nimbly sat up and immediately inquired, "Don't bring anything along, immediately wake up all the servants. All of you are to leave the mansion and flee for your lives. Duke Ashburn has revolted. A regiment of knights is currently heading for this location. Once they arrive, everyone here will be killed. Hurry, leave this place immediately." Han Sha-o rapidly explained the situation. Once he finished explaining, he didn't wait for a response and hurriedly left the mansion, immediately heading for the Boost Merchant Guild where Phoebe was. This mansion was bestowed to Han Sha-o by Uttard. However, Han Sha-o clearly didn't take it as a real home. There wasn't anyone here that Han Sha-o truly cared about. Han Sha-o also had a habit of keeping valuables within his spatial ring. At this moment there weren't any person or item that was worth. Hence he immediately left after warning Callas. There weren't many people who knew of Han Sha-o and Fanny's relationship. Furthermore, Fanny and Lawrence didn't have any interactions. On top of that, Fanny's father was Firenze. As the lord of the southern border, Firenze was one of the few people that Ashburn worried about. Han Sha-o simply didn't need to worry about Fanny's safety. Emily was within the Dark Mantle headquarters. Within the entire Awesome City, the defenses of the Dark Mantle headquarters was the most secure. There were countless teleportation arrays within that linked to every major city within the Empire. Even if Ashburn had overwhelming methods, he also wouldn't be able to breach the Dark Mantle headquarters in a short period of time. Wanting to capture the higher-ranking people of the Dark Mantle was even more impossible. Hence Han Sha-o was similarly not worried about Emily. However, Phoebe was close to Lawrence, and the Boost Merchant Guild had repeatedly foiled Grand Duke Ashburn's matters. Hence they were the most likely to be attacked. As the Grand Duke of the Empire, the power Ashburn wielded was second to King Uttard. Even Phoebe's master, Sacred Sword Master Carl, would similarly not be taken seriously by Ashburn. With the full support of the Church of Light, the number of experts Ashburn controlled was surely even greater. It was almost impossible for Sacred Sword Master Carl to depend on his own strength to kill Ashburn. Han Sha-o traveled as fast as lightning, directly heading for the Boost Merchant Guild. Along the way he discovered through his mystic demons even more changes happening within Awesome City. Many mansions were reduced to ruins in an extremely short period of time. A few small mansions were subjected to a number of large-scale killing spells and were razed to the ground within a few breaths. Ashburn's vicious actions were extremely resolute. As long as it was a hostile power, regardless of whether they were servants or guests, he didn't let let a single person off. Many of the nobles' mansions were involved in the cruel massacre. During this course of events, the army he controlled headed for the city gates, probably intending to seize control of all the city gates. The teleportation arrays within Asen City had been seized by Ashburn a long time ago. Layers upon layers of troops firmly surrounded the magic arrays. No one would be able to leave Asen City through the magic arrays. It seems that Ashburn and Charles had planned to thoroughly seize control of the entire Asen City, disposing of all their enemies within. The mystic demon that headed for the royal palace heard wails even before it neared. Troops that were under eldest Prince Charles had already seized control of the royal palace. The mystic demon simply made a pass around the palace and discovered that King Uttard had indeed died, and some rebels were already killed on the spot. From these signs, Han Sha-O suddenly realized that King Uttard's sudden demise was perhaps related to eldest Prince Charles. Otherwise the royal palace wouldn't be sealed off, not allowing any news to be spread. The other princes were unfortunately kept in the dark, simply unaware of the king's passing. Within Ashburn's mansion, Ashburn and eldest Prince Charles were seated together with many supporting nobles who had darkened expressions. As they directed officers to seize important positions, they read out names of nobles one after another, sending their subordinates to go and eradicate them. A mystic demon stayed in the vicinity and was able to clearly listen to the conversation between Ashburn, Charles and the others. Han Sha-O finally understood that tonight's incidents were indeed Ashburn and Charles fiercely striking back. Out of a sudden, a mystic demon who had reached Boost Merchant Guild ahead of time saw from afar a squadron of soldiers currently killing people unfeelingly. The merchants and guards of the Boost Merchant Guild died tragically one after another under the arrows of these soldiers. However, it was fortunate that these people had just begun at the front of the building and clearly haven't penetrated into the interior. Han Sha-O reckoned that Phoebe was still fine for the time being. However, Han Sha-O was still extremely worried, activating the art of demonic ninth heavens to its peak, heading for the Boost Merchant Guild with the speed of a meteor. He constantly prayed inwardly that nothing would happen to Phoebe. If anything happened to Phoebe, even though Han Sha-O had previously promised Uttard he would ignore that promise and skin Charles alive,